Welcome everyone. Sean is the name, and we want to bring in a introduction to option spreads through Eagle Investors, and I wanted to take a few moments to share some things and sit back, relax, and we'll dive into the world of spreads and what they are. So let's begin. Well, what are spreads? Well, believe it or not, a spread is what they consider a multi-leg transaction. It consists of basically two parts. It is an anchor leg and an offset leg. And sometimes people, even with this type of jargon, they say, pump the brakes. But what it is basically is a single leg trade. So a single leg, like buying a call or selling a call, or buying a put or selling a put, with an insurance piece attached to it. Sometimes they refer to it as an anchor leg and an offset leg, where the offset leg being the insurance piece, the anchor leg is the driving force, or some people deem it as what's called a money maker. And basically between the two, they have a delta to them, which is the movement of the option per dollar move. And that's what delta is. And the anchor leg has a stronger delta than the insurance leg. So therefore, the anchor leg, if the trade moves in your direction, has a chance to outperform the insurance piece. And what's nice about the insurance piece, once the anchor leg and the offset are in place together, in side by side, it actually reduces maintenance with your broker, and it provides insurance. So some are actually hard pressed not to spread, and oftentimes it is used for weekly income. Okay. And another benefit is that you define the risk with the spread. There are times personally where the spread might be too wide for my personal comfort, then I may just skip that particular ticker. Or I may just adjust the difference between the two strikes on the spread to be more comfortable in my situation on the risk profile, as what it's called. Okay. And believe it or not, just the benefits are endless with particular spreads. And sometimes newer beginning option traders are pessimistic or skeptical, or they just don't want to get to the learning curve. But once people actually spend the time to take the time to learn spreads, usually they don't look back. And oftentimes the spreads are done in lieu or instead of single leg type transactions. And it's also curious to know that a lot of banks and institutions actually use spreads instead of doing single leg trades for their particular, accomplishments or their particular trading styles. Usually they're rarely doing single leg transactions. And that's just my personal experience, having some friends that have been part of various option exchange floors and things like that have handled orders for these big banks and institutions. Okay. So here, getting in with more of the jargon, and basically there are kind of four different venues that we're going to discuss right now, or four different boxes, if you will. So first and foremost, if you're a bullish trader, could you buy a call? Absolutely. Okay. Or could you sell a put instead? So either you can buy calls or sell puts to be bullish on a particular ticker. Well, now if we overlay the spread, so we actually could buy a call and then sell a call at the same time for insurance. And the expression is called a bull call spread or a debit call spread. These are all the same terms, or excuse me, they're not the same terms, but the same meaning for different terms. And sometimes when you pick up various option books, sometimes it can be daunting to figure out what the author is explaining. So that's kind of why we built out this little cheat sheet for you. So instead of selling a put to be bullish, I actually could sell a put and buy a put at the same time and do what's called a bear put spread or a credit put spread. And sometimes people have a hard time with the bear put. Well, you want the premium to go down. So actually you're bearish on the premium, believe it or not. You want the underlying to go up, but you want the premium to go down. So therefore it's called a bear put spread or a credit put spread. And you're selling a put and buying a put at the same time. So over here, if you're bearish on the underlying, what could you do? Well, you could buy a put if it's near resistance, or you could sell calls or a call credit spread, in which you're selling a call and then buying a call actually above it to creatively short that particular ticker. Or we could just buy a put. Now, when would you buy a put instead of, or let's say it differently. Why would you do a put debit spread instead of just buying a put? Well, if the stock's expensive, so like the Amazons, the Netflix, the Googles, those are expensive stocks. So you may elect to do a debit spread instead of just buying a put instead. Okay, over here, same thing. What if the call is expensive to buy? You may go ahead and do a call debit spread just to reduce the maintenance for the particular broker. Let's face it, calls on Amazon are pretty pricey. So you might put on a spread instead just to have a lower or smaller account to still be able to trade it. Okay. So I created these little cheat sheets, and over the years, I've helped many people, whether I write it on a cocktail napkin or write it on a piece of paper. Some people get spreads kind of confused until you illustrate it like this, and then I think it usually provides quite a bit of clarity. So here, let's first and foremost talk about a credit spread. So let's say a stock isn't necessarily at a support area, but just above, which is fine. Could you sell a put, in this case at the 35 strike, and at the moment you do that, you go ahead and put on an insurance leg or an offset leg, and you buy a put at the 30. And at first glance, you would see that the difference in the spread is 5 points, or $500 risk profile, as they would call it. But what if you sold a put and you collected a $5 premium? And then what if you bought a put that cost, $2.50? So then the net credit in the account is $2.50 a share per spread. So now some would argue that the risk would be $500 risk between the two strikes, but wait, you're bringing in a $2.50 net credit between the anchor and the offset. So therefore the net credit, or excuse me, the risk profile for that particular trade would only be $250. And so obviously the bigger credit you can bring in between the two legs, the lower the risk profile. And there's many times that people have a hard time with this, but it's like you cater the spread width to what you're comfortable with or what you can sleep at night. So they're actually pretty fun once you understand all the moving pieces. And they're actually a great way to trade options for weekly income, believe it or not. And the fun thing about credit, just as a side note, it doesn't have to be at the area, so which is kind of fun. So let's look at this one up here. So could you sell, right, a call up here? And the cool thing about this, it doesn't need to be near the resistance area. You could sell a call up here at the 45s and then buy a call at the same time at the 50s. And so basically, this is a creative way to short with an insurance piece. And this wouldn't be a naked call. Same thing down here. This wouldn't be a naked put because you're putting on an insurance leg at the same time. And you don't need top tier option approval to do this. You need usually like the middle tier, okay, with your particular broker. And so here we could sell the 45s, buy the 50s. What if we sold the 45s and brought in a $4 premium, okay? And then we paid $2 for the 50 call above it. So then we're bringing in a net credit of $2 premium on the 45 call credit spread here. And what is the risk profile? Well, it's the $5 difference or $500 minus the net $2 credit that you're bringing in between the two legs. So then your net expense might be, or net loss if this thing just shoots to the moon, would be a $300 risk in regards to the spread. So that's a defined risk profile or defined risk trade, if you will. And as a side note, if I focus your attention in the middle of the slide, it says offsets are outside the anchors. So if we have the 35 here and the 45 here, notice the insurance is outside of the anchor legs. It's important for us to remember this for credit, because sometimes people get this confused. Okay, so now if I move on to the next slide, this is a debit spread. And I wrote in the center here, offsets are inside of the anchors here. And this is what we do if we do a debit spread. And again, normally debit spreads I don't do unless it's an expensive stock. Let's say it's over $100 a share and I don't want to afford the premium. A premium on like an Amazon, maybe, 8, 9, 10 grand. Okay. Instead, you could do a debit spread and it might cut that maintenance in half or deposit money in half to put on that physical trade. Okay. And so here, what if the stock is near the support area Could you buy the 50 call at the same time sell the 55 call? And, similar analogy, but what if you spend $500 for the 50 call and then you sell a call and bring in 250? So then your net expense will only be $250 instead of the 500 that it cost you if you just did the call by itself. Okay, so obviously you can see some viability of some arguments to spread. And if you'll find as you dig deeper and deeper into spreads, most of the arguments point towards it's hard to convince people not to spread once you understand the mechanics and how to do day in the life with a particular spread. So over here, what if it's near the resistance area? Okay, what could we do as traders? Well, could I buy a put at 75 because I think it's going to drop from this area? And yeah, maybe the premiums will cost us $600 or $700 to buy a put up here. Instead, we could buy the 75 put, spend, let's say 700, and then sell a put. And what if we brought in, $3 of premium selling a put at the 70, which is inside or underneath the 75 here? So then our net expense might be $400 instead of $700 that it would cost us just to buy the put alone. It's kind of fun. And it offers an insurance piece. If this thing just shoots up against us, these are going to be competing forces going to provide an insurance policy for us. So again, the offsets go inside on the debit, offsets go outside, right, if it's a credit. Okay, and these two little screenshots or two little examples are fun, to take note of. Maybe you want to take a memory of it. These are great things to have near your monitor in the back of, taped on your wall, just as a reminder, especially when you're first cutting your teeth in regards to spreads. And I'm not going to lie, this helped me when I was learning years and years ago. I had to kind of think of this in my head. I'm fortunate to think in pictures in my brain, but this is exactly where my brain went. And so then I made these little slides for you. Okay. So in summary, spreads can be used as a single leg option with an insurance policy attached. Again, I'm going to restate myself. It's just a single leg trade, but then we go ahead and put another trade on at the same time for insurance purposes. Can we define what that risk is? It's a defined risk trade. And sometimes people freak out where you say, yeah, I don't use stop losses, but I'm a spread trader. You're like, oh, how does that work? Well, you just adjust the spread width to your comfort level. That's kind of how that works. Okay. And can you use these for debit transactions or credit transactions? The answer is yes, yes, and yes. Okay. And again, institutions, trade this way. Institutions either take an opposing trade or they spread. They pretty much don't do single leg transactions. And this is just word of mouth from buddies that I've had, over the years in the exchange floors. You can take my word for it or not. The point is that spreads are definitely a fun vehicle to trade for weekly income. Okay. And again, my little expression is it's hard pressed in many situations not to spread. Okay. So hopefully you've enjoyed this little introduction, and please let us know if you have any further questions. And I hope to see you in a stream soon. Signing off, Sean and with Eagle, and cheers everybody, and take care.